everybody. Welcome to another edition of our climate change discussions. We're the Climate Change Brothers. Matt and Frank and Matt, whatever. Dr. K, what do they call you now? Doctor, they salute
Dr.
you and all.
Catman or
Catman,
something.
okay,
Yeah.
well, that's good. All right, so anyway, we're a couple engineers. You're agricultural mainly, and I'm electrical, but we do like to talk a lot about issues that are on our times for climate change. Anyway, we hear a lot of talk about cows. Cows are problems, and we need to get rid of beef, and cows suck, and all that. Why? What do cows do that cause climate change? What are they? What are they saying about cows?
Well, they do something called enteric fermentation. It's because when they eat, their stomach breaks down all that food within it, and then it produces a lot of methane from
Methane. That's the key.
methane.
Methane.
You're looking for methane. Okay, yeah.
Methane is the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because these type of animals are called ruminants, right?
Yeah.
Because they chew cuds and all that. So because they do that, they have the stomach and they burp it up and they chew their cud again. So it's a process that creates methane, right? We don't have that problem, but we don't have all those four stomachs like a cow does or whatever. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the situation, right? So. The other problem with all this, that in my mind, is that we talked what a ruminant is. It's a type of animal that has those stomachs. But do you know how many ruminant type animals there are in the world?
I can think of 5.
I always thought there was there's maybe 5. There's sheep and there's goats and there's
Yeah,
what else
sheep
is there?
and goats. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's over 130 types of ruminant type animals that chew their cuds like that graze. Deer is a good example of that too. 133 species or so forth. That's a lot of animals that roam the world that aren't even part of this, what we're talking about. So that's not even counted in the factors of producing methane. And they're all producing methane as well. So we're not going to get rid of 133 species or whatever. So it's not going to happen, right? So that's part of the I think that's a little bit disingenuous in their discussion. It's even if we were to get rid of all the cows in the U.S., but that's not going to make a difference in just the other types of ruminants we have. Let me tell my deer story. So
Okay.
just
yeah,
in
that's right.
just in back east, I used to live back east, as you know, in Virginia, and they have an overpopulation of deer. Deer are like everywhere, causing accidents all the time. Deer, because we haven't hunted the deer so much anymore, so they've decided they're just overpopulated right now. They're everywhere in northern Virginia. So this problem, what they're trying to do now is to reduce or to ease up on the restrictions of hunting, so people kill more deer because it's just so many out there. Anyway, there's a lot of these ruminant type animals that are out there that are just going to be there. Taking out the cows is probably not going to necessarily address those issues. Well, all right, so some people, they go around and they go, well, I'm going to become a vegetarian. I'm going to eat, bean burgers or whatever for the rest of my life.
That's what we do. We eat black. We eat
Oh,
black.
you do that?
Yeah, we're starting to eat black bean burgers. They're pretty good. Yeah.
Well, you do it for health reasons, right? That's
we started out eating meat, but I'm not advocating for everybody. But my wife got me on this diet, so I'm sorry. We're pescatarians. We eat seafood and stuff. So we do
for
eat
now, anyway, right?
Yeah, we don't. But yeah, we've only been doing this for like 2 or 3 months.
All right, so well, a lot of people are advocates and activists that want to help the planet, and they actually literally change over to not eating beef. They may eat other types of meat, but not beef for global warming purposes. Okay, and so there are people out there. And eating less beef is probably a healthy thing to do. I'm not saying that's not a healthy thing to do. But will it, we're going to talk a little bit, will that really make a difference?
Would it be a good idea to cut down the number of fast food meals we have?
Well, I think
per
for
week
health,
or something like that.
well, for health reasons, yeah, of course. Let's, but I don't think drastic transitions and changes are healthy for any economy or society. So yeah, I think the more we emphasize eat healthy, I think that's better. You're eating more healthy now, so that's great. That can never hurt anybody. But to just say Burger King's out of here, that's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not
that's
no, that's not going
probably
to happen,
not
right?
gonna.
So
Yeah,
that's
well,
not that wouldn't be healthy for our economy.
I was
Anyway,
just saying, like maybe advocate like people if they eat like fast food hamburgers 5 times a week, maybe they could just cut down
Right,
like
yeah.
once or twice a week.
And that's a sensible thing to do.
On that theme, though, there's these great emerging technologies growing some plant-based meat substitutes and protein matter using laboratories, bioreactors, where you can grow mass volume of plant-based material, such as with algae, and you use up a fraction of the space, and which is a fraction of the carbon footprint that you would have to have when you do other plant-based meat substitutes, like you grow on, regular land and farmland. So that's an exciting prospect, I think, that we should look forward to.
To get rid of beef altogether. I mean, that's what some people advocate for, is just getting rid of all beef. Do you think that will solve the problem? Or do you think it will create other problems?
Get rid of the beef. Yeah, what's the beef then about?
Yeah, where's the beef?
Where's
actually?
where's the beef and stuff like on that? To tell you the truth, I don't think it really will. If one of the things we were talking about was like here in the United States, even if we took all those measures and we did, stop beef production, you have the rest of the world to deal with, and you'll tell me the numbers later on because you were telling me what they are, but there's many times more cattle across the world, and in a lot of those countries, they're poorer nations, and those people depend on the cow for their livelihood. Like for milk and meat and other purposes they have it for. So if you were to get rid of all those cattle, you basically be trying to doing some of the poor people, the population. You'd be trying to get rid of them,
Right.
and we don't see that as like a solution or an alternative to do that.
The U.S. falls in as far as its beef production. Are we number one in the world, or where do you think we fall in there? That's a guess.
Yeah, that's a
Take
guess.
stab at it.
I'd say number 3 or something like that. I think.
That's pretty close. Yeah, we're actually number 4. So China's number 1. They have over 350. They estimate 360 million heads of cattle. After that, it's Brazil. They do around 260 million. Then it's India. What do you think? Because China and India are the biggest populated countries in the world, so India's next.
So what do you think would happen if you tried to get rid of the cattle in those
Well, so let's-
countries? Like how would
yeah.
that even work out or something like that?
It's a non-starter because, okay, first of all, Brazil's not going to give up their one of their biggest industries in their country. I mean, that would probably be an economic collapse there. That's maybe we could handle a little bit of that here, probably not very much of it here, but maybe we could reduce a little bit. But Brazil, I don't think so. China, they've got a lot of people to feed. You're going to take away a whole food source around the world. That's probably going to be very difficult for them to absorb. India is even yet another problem. So not a problem, but India cows aren't used for beef. They're just there. Cows are considered, a sacred animal. So, I mean, I was in India one time, and we're riding around in this car, and all of a sudden the car is, on the road because a cow's in the middle of the road. Okay, I'm thinking, oh well, so everybody's kind of like helping the cow get all that thing, and so cows, you don't touch cows. Cows roam on the streets. They walk up to buildings. You're not allowed to mess with them. So. They got a lot. They got about 200 million cows in the country, and like they say, about 40, 50,000 cows roam the city, just in the capital city there. So, which I've seen, stuff. So they're not going to get rid of their cows. I mean, we wouldn't make them either, and so why would we do that? So, anyway, that's a problem. Even in the U.S., if we were to get rid of the cattle industry, that's a food source that would have to be replaced with something. Okay, and so therefore, what do you do there? How do you transition that? that the numbers you mentioned. There's in the U.S. We've actually reduced the amount of cattle we have in our country over the last 20 years. Say, and a lot of that's because of technology and better production techniques, better refrigeration, less waste, things like that. So we're actually we're producing more beef every year, but we're actually have gone down in the number of cattle we have in our country. We're around 94 million heads of cattle right now, and about 30 million of those are for beef right now at any given time, and about 10 million are for dairy production. And so the other ones are either in the process of or growing up, or they're young, or whatever, or they may be wild and things. So the professor there at UC Davis was talking about that, mentioning about free range cattle, is that a lot of people were complaining that the cattle are using up too much of the arable land, farmland in the country. And he's saying, well, there's a lot of, if you look at the worldwide situation of agriculture, that he cites that 2/3 of the agricultural land is marginal, meaning that it can be used for agriculture, but it can't really grow crops in a significant amount because of the way the land is structured. It's rocky or whatever. It's not got a lot of water. It can't maybe produce the crops. It reminds me of back in, I used to live in the Middle East, and one of the things they did a lot there was sheep herding. Sheep farmers were all over the place in the Middle East. That's a ruminant type animal as well, and they got tons of them out there. And they would use, because not in the Middle East, there's not a lot of land that you can grow a lot of crops on, but they can graze with eat the weeds and stuff with the sheep. One thing sheep and goats are good at is eating anything. So they can help the land out by, like you're saying, help fertilize the land, help reclaim the land a little bit, and also not use up the fertile land, say where they're irrigating, where there's only maybe that source of water in that part of the country. To take Jordan, for instance, they have the Jordan Valley that grows all the crops that for that region because of the Jordan River, and they irrigate out of there. So, but they don't use that for cattle grazing or for sheep herding and things. They use it for raising crops. So they have a pretty good land management system there because they really need to do that. They don't have a lot of land to waste there, and so, like you're saying, that's a good management process. I think if we were to think about that a little more, about properly rotational of where we could do it, I think that would go a long way.
So I wrote a book called Biofuels Manufactured from Renewables Other Than Cornstarch, and I kind of brought this issue up a little bit, but most of the corn we grow is half and half. Half of it goes for making ethanol for fuel, and the other half goes for making dry distillers, grains, and solubles, which are the animal feed for cattle and stuff. So that's most of, not all corn, but most of the corn that's grown on like 80, 90 million acres of land goes for that. So,
yeah.
And soybeans is kind of a similar situation. The oilseed meal from the soybeans is used for cattle feed. So you have about, I would say, at least a quarter of all your farmland is being used for feeding cattle. So now, how do you feel about that as far as resources go? We're talking about, as far as, using all that farmland to feed the cattle. I mean, is that something that you think that we could cut down on, or is that something we need? I mean, obviously we want to grow the cattle. I think we don't want to get rid of the industry. But as far as like resources go and the amount of land it uses, and I don't know what else we would grow it for anyways. I mean, maybe we could grow other things, but I mean, that's a lot of, we were talking like 150 million acres between soybeans and corn,
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, those are big cash crops, corn and soybeans. But there's other cash crops too, and so again, I don't. The more that cattle can free range and we can do rotational pastures and stuff, the less and less we'll need to have as much soybean and corn be grown for cattle feed, and so we can transition a little bit of that to other food sources. Or even other energy sources if you want, if you would. So, so that's I think, again, a process that's going to take a little bit of time, not immediately, so we can transition at some point slowly, so we don't hurt anybody's business yet, and we don't get rid of food, but we still help the farmers out and they can still grow something. Other thing that's disingenuous, I think, is that when people say, "Oh, well, we'll get rid of 25% of that front end of the greenhouse gases by production of all this feed for the cows," because that's what they add in some of that in their life cycle analysis for why there's so many greenhouse gases for the cows. But see, that land is not going to the farmers aren't just going to walk around and go, "Okay, we're not growing any more food here for the cows. Let's not do anything. We're going to do something." They're going to grow something. And that's still going to, maybe not as much as corn, wasting and fertilizing, because, like you're saying, corn takes a little more fertilizer and it creates a little more nitrous oxide because of that. But they're still going to do something, and that's still going to be counted towards some type of production of greenhouse gases because they're creating that as they produce whatever product they're going to do. So I think it's going to be somewhat of a wash if you transition from corn and soybeans to something else. I mean, it'll be a little bit less, but the land is still going to be used for something. They were talking about doing a methane tax, though, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they were talking about it, but I don't know for like I saw a Facebook post. A few of my friends kind of came out with them when they were trying to come up with this build back better bill or whatever that was coming up, and it never came into law. But one of the things that they claimed that one of the legislators was trying to do was to institute a cow tax,
a methane tax, right?
Well, kind of a methane tax, but a cow tax, and they claim that it could be as high as $4,500 to $6,500 per cow, depending on whether it's a beef cow or if it's a dairy cattle. Yeah.
Right.
And so that seems pretty high because when
a little drastic, I think.
When we're calculating, actually, if you did an actual methane tax on the cows produce about 200 pounds of methane per year per cattle per head. So that's about, if you were to do like an existing methane tax that they did from this Inflation Reduction Act for the methane leaks, for the
like
oil
and gas,
it's about $1,500 per ton. And that's about 25 times higher than what the normal carbon tax is for carbon dioxide. So if you took 200 pounds per year, that's only 1/10 of a ton.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be
you're
paying,
overtaxing the cow.
You're not gonna pay $1,500 a year for the cow. You're gonna pay $150 a year.
That would be more sensible, yeah.
But even if you tripled it, like I said, that's 4%. But if you did 12%, that may only be $450, $500. Well, so it won't even be close to what the $4,500. It shouldn't be that high,
Right. Well, do you think that any tax on cows would be a good thing?
No, I don't think so. And we're talking about this. I think especially with the oil industry too, this methane tax we're talking about is just going to increase the cost that produces of the oil, and for the cow, it's going to be the same thing. And we're gonna
beef will go up.
Beef will go up and stuff. I mean, they may say that it'll reduce the consumption of beef, but
This is, that's...
Well, I was going to say too, it's not a good idea to do a tax because the price of the beef or of the dairy or the beef products are going up anyways, primarily due to the higher cost of fossil fuels. Because you need all that fossil fuels to make the fertilizer and grow the crops and all that, so that's going to go higher. And because of that, those things are going to, and then the overuse of the farmland to make these crops is going to, it might cause higher prices too.
So prices are already going up, inflation's going up. I mean, if we add another tax to cows, it's going to go even more. When we've talked about this before, but that just creates more and more people in the poverty level, okay? Because they can't afford to keep up with that, right? So, by doing we're being great, we're taxing cows and we're going to take care of this climate change stuff, all we're doing is we're creating more poor people, which poor is, if you're in the poverty level, you have a higher death rate based on your ability to handle situations. I mean, because you can't afford certain things, whether it's, healthcare, whether it's, education, whether it's proper nutrition, all these things contribute to death rate being higher among the impoverished. And so, again, they estimate that to be, in the hundreds of thousands per year. And that's a tragic thing. But why we were doing so well for so long? In the last 5-6 years, the poverty rate was going down. We went from 15% in the poverty level down to less than 11%. Okay, which is a great trend. Now we're going back up again. Not a good thing. That's going to cause more deaths. So let's not create more problems, in the world. We're trying to save lives so we can, through climate change measures so we can protect our future. But let's not kill people in the process of doing it. That's sort of not a healthy thing to do. All right, so thank you for joining us in this episode. We'll bid you adieu, and until next time, we're the Climate Change Brothers, Frank and Matt and Frank, whatever. Right?
Yeah, Dr. K.
Dr. K,
Call me Dr.
All right,
K.
very good. All right, signing off. Thanks.